Good evening again. This is Mike Siver with the No Fences Show, and we're continuing on. This is part 3 of Repairing Broken Adults. And my guest tonight is Earnest Spencer. He's a friend of mine, and we've done several shows together, and we're of like minds.
Yes, we are.
In the raising of our children to become functioning adults. We should say that without. We've both been down the road a couple times, and
Yep.
so we know where we don't want to go again, and we're hoping that some of our experiences, Ernest and mine, can guide some other people. Last week we talked about children who watch their fathers abuse their mothers. And not all parents do that, and we know that, but we happen to work with a lot of people that do that. So, and it doesn't mean that children are going to grow up to be dysfunctional adults and abuse their spouses. But a great many of them do, and the uncomfortable part about it is that most young men growing up, after having seen their fathers abuse their mothers, don't become bullies to women as they're growing up in their maturing times. They don't abuse their girlfriends when they're on dates. They don't abuse their college friends, their other girls that they're with. They don't abuse any of them. It's when they get married that sometimes the children, or not the children, but the spouses will say, well, he was a nice guy when we were dating.
Mm-hmm.
He was a wonderful man while we were dating. But something happened when we got married. And the short answer to that is it's called situational learning. I see my father abuse my mother, but I'm not going to do that till I become a husband.
Okay.
He's a husband abusing his wife. So I'm not going to do that until I become a husband. And then all of a sudden they become husbands, and not that they jump right into the abuse situation, but it grows and grows and grows until at some point it becomes dysfunctional.
Okay.
Now you've experienced that with friends of yours, and in your life, I believe.
Well, my father was abusive, and we talked prior to the show, and I seen an uncle that was abusive, and my grandfather wasn't. But my father abused my mother, and I went exactly the opposite way. I've never put my hands, long story, but they attacked me twice, each one once. But I've never wanted to see women hurt like my mother was hurt, okay? But
Yeah.
I got a first cousin that watched his mother be beat, and when he got married, he did exactly what you said.
And that's the thing. They can go either way. And one of the quotes that I wrote and put in here was just what you did.
Mm.
The greatest power we have as a human being is to make a choice.
Okay.
And that goes by a story, I don't know if I told it last week or not, about the reporter who interviewed the boys whose fathers was in prison. And these were twin boys, and she interviewed twin boys.
Mm-hmm.
And one was a doctor or a lawyer, I forget, a professional man.
Right.
Went to college, was a great man, good father, had the life you want to dream of. The other one was in prison, his twin brother.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked him a whole bunch of questions, the same questions, so that she get the opinion of both of them with the same question. But the answer, she asked them a question about, why did you become who you are?
Mm-hmm.
And they get the same answer, which she thought was surprising. With a father like mine, what would you expect?
Right.
So with a father like the abuser, he became an abuser. But what did you expect me to become?
Right.
But his brother, who did the opposite, made a choice. With a father like mine, why would I want to be like that?
Right. Right.
So we talk about repairing broken adults. And there are situations that men change for various reasons, and a big one is today PTSD, from going away to a trauma-induced environment psychologically, and then come home. There's some issues there that sometimes are very hard to deal with, and a lot of men can't deal with them. and it creates a personality that wasn't who they were, but it wasn't childhood induced.
Right.
It wasn't from being abused as a child or abusing as a child. That wasn't part of it.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, survivor's guilt, survivor's remorse.
Yeah.
Well, why did I make it home and they didn't?
Yeah.
And it's real weird that you said that, because I had 2 therapy appointments today, one at the VA and one with my regular therapy, and both of them about PTSD.
Right.
Because, but also, kind of quickly, where I grew up, a lady wrote a book. She went to the same school I went to, and it's called No Children Live Here.
Mm-hmm.
And Oprah's done a 6-part series on it. But it says in the area where I grew up, and in a lot of other cities, not just where the children have seen so much. I grew up in the projects that they got PTSD by the time they're 11 or 12 years old.
Yeah, and they don't know it.
Right.
And it's not until lately that people started to see that trauma.
Right.
But and that falls back into what I write about so much, because these books, as you can see, are available on here. And for more information about the books, you can contact the website that's posted on the bottom of the page now and then, or the bottom of the screen now and then. And I'll gladly respond. If you want to contact me personally or Ernest, you can contact the website. We will then respond to you, and we're hoping that we can get somebody to come on the show as a guest, or either a guest of Ernest or a guest of mine. But the one thing I'd like to read here, part of the book, it says, children soak up the behaviors they grow up with,
Okay.
whether positive or negative. It is up to us, once we become adults, to learn how to wring out the old negative behaviors and soak up some new positive ones. Now that's real easy to say. It's real easy to write. And for some people that's very difficult, because as another chapter I write in the book about the word try. And if you look up the word try in some dictionaries, it has a huge amount of meanings for the word try, because there's all kinds of legitimate meanings for it. But one of the little meanings means try alludes to failure.
Okay.
And we'll get into that in another show, but how I tried so hard to stop drinking and I can't, so I quit. I quit trying.
Right.
I tried to keep my marriage together and I couldn't do it, so I quit trying.
Okay.
And that whole chapter explains why we try and fail.
Okay.
And if that becomes part of our upbringing, it's called situational learning. No matter what type of atmosphere within our community or family we grow up in, like the sponge, we will keep absorbing from it until we are full. Then whatever we are full of will start to flow back out. If that is love, kindness, and honesty and fair play, ethical thinking and acceptance of others, then that is what we give back to the community and to our families. If we fill up on hate, distrust, lying, drugs, or alcohol, abuse, bigotry, racism, selfishness, then that is what we will give back to the community.
Exactly.
And you can see it. You see it all the time, and today it's even more relevant on the television. And how much of that is actually true, because I know I work in the system, and we get all the people that have been caught with the negativity. Mm-hmm. And I run a Bible study class in the jail, mm-hmm. and almost every one of them, a lot of them get there because they think it'll help them, but some get there because they know they need the help.
Right.
There's a big difference.
Yes, it is.
There's a huge difference. And it's not till we go through some of the stories that we tell, because we combine Bible study with the book.
Okay.
And how we reference different chapters in the book with that. And we need to understand, to repair broken adults, like the quote in the beginning of this chapter, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men.
That's a good phrase. I like that.
Okay? That was said by a man named Frederick Douglass.
Okay.
I don't know when he said it, but that's his quote. I wish it was mine, but it's not. So, these are the things that we talk about. Ernest and I talk about a lot. These are the things we talk about in the groups that I run and the different families that I work with. We have to pay more attention, I believe, in raising our children. It's not all the answer, so I'm not going to sit here and say it's all parents' fault, but a big part of it is being an aware parent.
Okay.
Parents know, mothers especially, know their child's behavior.
Right.
They know what happens. They, on a daily basis. I'm a behaviorist. I watch behaviors. I record conversations. I record what people do, and we play it back and we show them. Do you know you said that all the time? Oh, I didn't know I said that all the time. You do. Do you know that you do this all the time when you're moving, when you're talking, or you do this when you're walking? No, I don't.
Right.
You've learned things, and we learn when we're young how to act as an adult. And they say, and I don't have anything but statistics to back it up, that we learn by the time we're 9 or 10 years old how to interact with adults.
Okay.
Not how to act with them, but how to interact with them.
Right.
If we see my mother or father be nice to somebody when they're talking to them, and then when they go out the door, close the door, talk about them behind their back,
Right.
we then think that's okay to do.
Okay.
And then we may grow up to become backstabbers.
Right.
And people that spread rumors. We don't realize as adults, and I didn't realize growing up in raising my children, getting my children, that that's how they were impacted by what we did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they see and hear everything.
Yes, they do.
Everything. And they have no other ruler or guidance to go by but their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they grow up, they start to see their kids doing it, their friends doing it, the other kids they play with doing it, and they wonder why their friends say, well, we can do that at our house, but you can't do that at your house.
Right.
There's so many, children are the answer to everything we do. I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't spend as much time, and I know working parents today are hard.
Right.
It's hard for mom and dad to make ends meet. It's not easy out there. I fully understand that. But somehow there's got to be a compromise, I think, with raising children, because they are sponges. They grow up to be what they see happening around them. They have no other way. Right. Now, you, when you got older, made a choice.
Yes, I did.
This is not what I'm going to do. And I would bet you to say, Ernest, at some point, someone in your life gave you some insight into what not to do.
2 uncles, yes.
You know, you had that. I didn't have that. I must admit, my dad was an alcoholic, and I ended up being an alcoholic. Can I blame him? Partially, they say, because it's in my genes.
Yeah.
That alcohol is I'm now more susceptible. So I know that. I've got 27 years clean. So I made a choice, but after it cost me my marriage and my children. I had to wait to that point to have it happen. And it's funny, because like my dad, there was a divorce. He lost everything. I lost everything. So maybe was I being him? I don't know.
Right.
I could be. I learned, I'm sad to say he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
He died an alcoholic. I'm sorry about that, but that's what he did, so.
So did my father.
Yeah, it's a shame. We got about a minute and a half to go. So I need to get, I've been doing all the talking.
I've been listening to you.
I need to get your feedback in here, dude.
Okay, real quickly, I could give you a minute worth of feedback. Exactly what you're saying, I'm witnessing in my household.
Right.
Because I got an 18-year-old granddaughter who's trouble, and she's a bully and a whole, and I'm watching my granddaughter, who's only 2.5, start to do what her mother does. Crosses her arms, screams out, I ain't gonna talk to you.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me. And she was real nice when we went to my sister's house, because my sister had a conversation with her. And I asked my therapist, and I probably should ask you, she said it was the difference in the atmosphere.
Yep.
The peace and calm at my sister's house. So she doesn't do it, but when we come back home, and she got all her mama hollering and screaming, and so I had to change my tactics and start calling her into my room, telling her, if you talk to me like that, it's not right, you're being selfish. And I'm starting to see, only been doing it about 2 weeks, I'm starting to see it, slight change. And I hope to get it more change before, the next year or so.
Well, we're going to finish up this segment right now, but I've got a lot to say about that.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that in the next segment.
All right, we will do.
All right, with that, Ernest and I are going to say goodbye for this one.
Good night.
And I hope